Well, today's been one of those days that just been doing a lot of thinking. And one of the things I've been, thinking about is how, once I get the coffee business going, how do I expand that out? How do I get more and more people to know about it? So I started thinking about that, and I've also been thinking about what the things that the company's going to have, and one of those is going to be community. So then I started thinking in terms of community. What would that potentially encompass? Which then went into, okay, if I've got people in various places around the US, let's say, and those people are coffee drinkers, how could I come up with a model that they would then be able to sell coffee? They wouldn't sell the coffee, but they would introduce their friends to the coffee, who would then hopefully buy a subscription, so they'd get it every 2 weeks, every month. The person who initiated that would get, every person they signed up, they would get a certain fee. And then the people who signed up on the subscription, so they'd be getting it every 2 to 4 weeks or that kind of thing, they would get a discount for that subscription as opposed to buying one bag and then maybe another bag in 6 months kind of deal. And then also factoring in what we'd like to put in for donations to charities and stuff like that. So, I sort of got that worked out, and basically how it, I think, would work. There's still a lot of fine-tuning. Is that, let's suppose Mary in Boston says, yes, I'd like to sell your coffee. And Mary gets, say, 20 people. Now, for getting those 20 people to buy even their initial bag, Mary would get like $1 a bag off those. And then if those 20 people, let's say, let's be really optimistic, all 20 of them signed up for the subscription to get the coffee on a regular basis. Those people would then, because they signed up, get $1 off a bag. Okay? And these are all numbers, I still have to play with them all, so don't take that as concrete numbers. But they would get $1 off a bag, and as long as they continued their subscriptions, Mary would get 50 cents a bag for having found them. Now, she doesn't have to do anything more, so she gets 50 cents a bag for those 20 people. Now, if she gets more, then she gets $1 and then more 50-cent subscription ones. Now, suppose one of those 20 people decided, oh, I'm going to sell it to, because I work at whatever she does, and she has tons of friends. Works perfectly fine that way, because then, let's say, Joe is taken off of Mary's list, so Mary doesn't get the 50 cents anymore. Joe starts his new list with the same concept going along. So Joe then builds a list. Joe gets $1 for each initial one, and then 50 cents for every one that stays. And this way, the coffee business could expand out to, all different markets that I couldn't possibly get to in any kind of a timely manner, with costs and everything else. I can't be traveling to Denver and to here and there and everywhere else. It's just not cost effective. So that's one of the things we've been working on today, is trying to figure out how that could potentially work. I think it has a lot of good potential there. And you can let me know what you think about that type of thing. If you have any other ideas on it, but it's a way I'm looking to try to expand it out with the resources that we have and the connections we have. So I think it has potential, but again, let me know what you think of that. The other one is, I started looking into shipping, and you can't get too much into the shipping aspect yet, because you have to develop a commercial account before you can get prices from the post office or UPS. But there is a shipping component, of course, because you can't just bring these coffees and this one goes here, and it's free. And I think people understand that there's a cost involved with the shipping. It's either you have to raise the price substantially to encompass that shipping, or you have to charge an extra so that the person who lives, you know, a state away, their shipping charge is less than the person that lives farther away. That I have to work with UPS and the Postal Service to see which is the most economical way to do it. I mean, I'm not Amazon. I don't really have any, you know, pull to like, no, we're only going to pay this much. So those are the things that we've been working on today, thinking about anyway. And there's all these different, you know, thinking aspects. And I mean, I'm very optimistic about all this because remember the other day I told you the realtor came and he had like 2 cups of coffee. He was raving about it. Well, we just saw some other people we know, and he was at their house, not on business, pleasure. And he was like, oh yeah, I was at Todd and Sid's. They had the most phenomenal coffee I've ever had. And I was like, oh, well, that's a plus. So, and we're just learning, you know, and part of the learning with this, that fresh roast roaster doesn't have any temperature gauge. So I have to go a lot by color and what the bean looks like and how I want it to try to come out. When you get into the more commercial roasters, it has temperature gauges so you can see how that temperature is rising. Because, I mean, I know already where I want, you know, basically the bean goes in here, and when it goes in, it's cold. The curve drops like this, and you want to bring the heat up to a certain point. When you get right to here, then you want to try to level that off so it's like a little slow growth. You don't want it to keep going. And right now, I can't tell that because I can't tell the heat of the beans with this roaster. I can basically guess and change air speeds and those kind of things, but I can't get the exact temperatures. So I'm looking forward to being able to use something like that and give me a much better idea. And yes, I'm inside. It's breezy. What is it? Let me see. 76.
And your wife is in shorts and sleeveless.
She has issues.
Sweat.
She has issues. Anyway, that's what we've been up to today. So far. On a totally other different note, drone stuff, I don't know why, but I've been getting more and more people contacting me about doing drone stuff for them, which, I mean, it's great, but, you know, it's one of those kind of things that, you know, one of the aspects of how things work here is that, because I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, you could just stay and do drone work and, you know, pictures and sell that stuff and everything else. But that's not the case. What would end up happening is, you know, it's a funny place because, yeah, we've been here a long time and 99 out of 100 people might not have a problem. But, I mean, in that particular case, that scenario of things, I can picture actually one that could have a problem because that person tries to do the same thing. Not very successfully, I don't think. And that person could then go to immigration and say, hey, this man's making money off of doing stuff and he doesn't have work papers here and blah, blah, blah. And pretty soon immigration is like, oh, Todd, we need to take a plane ride. So it's, you know, it's a funny place because you can be here for 50 years and be perfectly fine with 99.9% of the people. But for one reason or another, one person gets upset with you. Maybe you didn't buy them a beer, maybe you said something to them. I don't know what it is. You can never tell. But this is the way it is here. And all of a sudden, for no actual reason, they just get upset with you, and they go to immigration, and immigration has to check into what they're saying. So if that scenario came about, you could find yourself in big trouble. So anyway, I just got a phone call, and somebody's going to be stopping by, so I'm going to talk to them. But that's just how it is here. If you know, like I said, I know tons of people here. 99.9% of them will be perfectly happy. They're not concerned, blah, blah, blah. But then all you need is one. And then you're thrown off the island. You can't come back, blah, blah, blah. It's not worth it.